What's going on, Packer fans? Welcome into the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. This, I guess, is why we do this 365 days a year. There is never a dull moment when it comes to the Green Bay Packers, when it comes to the NFL. The Packers' victory over the Arizona Cardinals feels like a millennia ago. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, the upcoming game, Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, no longer happening. We had a day filled with news, filled with events. In just a very short stint, we learned that Rodgers is COVID positive and everything that goes along with that. You already know all of it. We learned that Jordan Love is going to start against Kansas City for his very first game as an NFL starter, assuming he can test negative for the remainder of the week. And Blake Bortles is back in Green Bay, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. And I want to start today by saying very succinctly, as clearly as possible, I effing hate this stuff. So as we get into all the stuff that we're going to talk about with Jordan Love and things like that, that stuff is great. Watching Jordan Love playing his very first game as a starter, amazing. We're going to get to all of that. But the reason that I do this is for fun. It is not for money. It is not for anything else. It is for fun. And talking about players' COVID vaccination status and the difference between vaccinated and immunized and who's on a COVID-19 reserve list, all of that crap I hate. And it's because it's the antithesis of what sports is meant to be, right? It is supposed to be fun and entertaining and enjoyable. And if you were on any sort of social media yesterday, you know that every sports conversation surrounding this entire thing was not that. And I fully get that this is the day and age that we live in right now, and COVID surrounds everything that we do. And frankly, we're very lucky to be in a situation, given the circumstances, where we can still talk about sports and talk about the Packers and still have a season and all those sort of things. But this sort of stuff is not the fun drama that I would prefer to be talking about. And I thought about just like ignoring the entire thing, because you know the vast majority of the talking points already, but I would be doing myself and anyone that's listening a disservice if I didn't touch base on this in some capacity. I would rather spend the next 15 minutes with you breaking down long snapper tape of Steven Wirtle and seeing what he might be able to bring to this kicking game. That sounds much more enjoyable than talking about Aaron Rodgers and his vaccination and immunotherapy and all of that garbage. But here we are. So I just wanted to say that and get it out of my system because I feel like I needed to. Thank you for bearing with me for that moment. So let's get into all of this and unpack Pandora's box. The first and biggest thing at the end of the day, regardless of how you feel about him right now, is Aaron Rodgers' health. At the end of the day, this is still a potentially serious situation where Aaron Rodgers has been diagnosed with COVID-19. And I think the most important and prudent thing is to wish him luck and hope that he recovers quickly and that this is not a serious ailment for him, and that for the most part, as we have seen with players, that this doesn't become a long-term issue, that although it hasn't been that way for all players. Some players have experienced some long-term issues with this. So first and foremost, a speedy recovery to Aaron Rodgers, which of course is I think the most clear and obvious thing that we can say about this, that everyone hopefully is on the same page in regards to. Number two is, as we kind of go through this, is all of the protocol stuff. Right now, I am not going to get into every single protocol, what may have been followed, what may have not been followed. Literally do not care. Now, if Aaron Rodgers gets fined for all of this, so be it. If the Packers get fined for all of this, so be it. That can all be a discussion for somebody else to take care of. Not my realm. No worries whatsoever. If the Packers lose draft picks because of this, if Aaron Rodgers is suspended because of this, then we're going to start talking about that in much more serious ways, because that affects the Packers on the field in a huge way. If they lose draft picks, that's going to certainly affect the future of their team. They're going to need those draft picks moving forward with the state of their roster and the salary cap the way that it is. And of course, if Aaron Rodgers misses games, that certainly is going to seriously hamper an all-in sort of season. And I mean misses games due to suspension. So if and when it gets to that point, we will discuss all of those. For the time being, it seems like the protocols that were broken would more be fines for Rodgers and the Packers, which, whatever. Not ideal, probably, but it is what it is. And again, somebody else can go into that in much more detail. It does seem like he should have had a mask on during press conferences. We've seen Kirk Cousins and other players who we know are not vaccinated not have masks on. It seems slightly odd that players would give full press conferences with a mask on. It seems like that might not be the best idea. Maybe isolate them in a single room and not have, I don't know, but it seems like there could be a better way than that. It also just seems that, in total, that maybe Rodgers wasn't following the full protocols. But again, somebody else can get into that. I literally do not care. It affects Green Bay right now. And I think the optics of this is probably the thing that everyone's kind of talking about, right? As far as Aaron Rodgers goes and the optics of this goes, I think it seems clear at this moment that Rodgers was at best disingenuous with how he answered the question of whether or not he was immunized. However, or if he got the vaccination, let's put it that way. However, that being said, I do wholeheartedly believe that we should hear from Rodgers before jumping to conclusions on this. The optics aren't great right now. I will easily say that. It doesn't look good for Rodgers and how he answered that question and just kind of how he's handled this entire situation, because we know now that he's not vaccinated. And that certainly affects his team. That certainly affects where this Packers team stands right now. It affects the health of the players on the team potentially. So all of that doesn't look great right now. But I would personally like to hear from Aaron Rodgers before we jump to any conclusions. And I will speak from experience and the fact that this past offseason, when we kept hearing from everyone besides Aaron Rodgers, and I actually touched base on this. I said one of the things I touched base on, if you remember, is that I said Aaron Rodgers was losing the PR battle and losing the battle of public opinion because he wasn't speaking on something. I understood his grounds in not wanting to talk about all the offseason drama and maybe keeping that between him and the Packers. But because he didn't talk to anyone, he was looking like the bad guy with everything. But I will freely admit that I probably jumped to some conclusions back then without hearing from Aaron Rodgers himself. And when you heard him talk at that opening press conference, I think for a lot of people, there were some aha moments of, okay, I can maybe understand some things that he was going through and maybe why he did some of the things that he did. Not writing a blank check and absolving Rodgers of everything this past offseason. As I've said pretty much all along, I think there's blame on Rodgers and the Packers and everything in between. Sometimes relationships just get to that point. Everything seemed to be on a good course, but I learned from that situation that, you know what, until I hear from both sides, I'm going to try to do better to jump to conclusions in those situations, or to not jump to conclusions, I should say. So while the optics aren't great for Rodgers at this moment, I would very much like to hear from him and see what he has to say. Now, Pat McAfee gave him an open opportunity to come on his show on Wednesday, and he did not do so. And it seems that we probably won't hear from him until he gets back and does a press conference, but we don't know that for sure. Maybe he'll talk on McAfee next week in his normal scheduled time. Who knows? All of that remains to be seen. But until we get to that point, I would like to reserve judgment on exactly what may have happened and what Rodgers said and didn't say, and all of those sort of things until we hear directly from the horse's mouth. So no judgment passed at this point, because again, we don't know all of the facts. There's been a lot of stuff reported, which I believe all of it. I don't have any reason not to, but I would love to hear from him first. So protocols seemingly broken. Rodgers' health, certainly the first and foremost thing that you want to see him get back. Not jumping to any conclusions until we certainly hear from Aaron Rodgers as well. Now we get to some of these other questions as we continue to peel back the layers of this onion. So how long is Aaron Rodgers out for? Well, we know unequivocally for sure he is out for the Kansas City game. He could be out the Seattle game. He could potentially be out longer. Malik Taylor definitely took some time. He is technically eligible to come back the day before the Seahawks game and rejoin the team. Of course, he needs to have a couple of negative tests prior to that and be asymptomatic. If any of that does not happen in a very tight window, he would not be able to play against Seattle. So he for sure will miss one game, could miss two if it continues to linger on. He could miss more than that as well. But as of right now, one is a for sure, and two is really probably a 50-50 coin flip at best at this point as to whether or not he can play against Seattle. So there's a chance he could miss both games. There's a chance Russell Wilson could be back for that game. There's a chance Geno Smith could be starting. We could have Jordan Love versus Geno Smith. We could have Jordan Love versus Russell Wilson. We could have Wilson Rodgers. We could have Wilson. Who knows? We could have Rodgers, Geno Smith. We don't know, but that Seattle game will be up in the air for Rodgers until about a day before. And we probably won't learn until Sunday. I guess he could be activated Saturday, but Saturday or Sunday, if he is in fact going to be able to be activated for that game. So that is another thing that is completely up in the air. This isn't just potentially a one-game thing. This could linger on farther than that. I think the next thing that we need to peel back is just how much risk remains for the remainder of the team. There were Halloween parties. It certainly seems that Rodgers was maybe unmasked at certain situations. He is the leader of this team. He is, I'm sure, involved in a variety of different situations. When he's giving post-game pep talks in the locker room, was he masked up the entire time? I don't know, but these are questions that I think have to be concerned at this moment. And it should be pointed out that Rodgers was not the only person to test or to go on the COVID-19 list. It was Isaac Yiadom as well. So this continues to be an issue, from Malik Taylor to Joe Barry to Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard due to protocols, not due to testing positive, Aaron Rodgers, Isaac Yiadom. This is now becoming a a drawn out, longer issue than I think anyone would have liked it to become. And Green Bay is certainly not out of the woods yet. And the biggest one there, right, is Jordan Love. What if he tests positive? Now, if Jordan Love goes into this game and he's starting against Kansas City, you have still a puncher's chance of going into KC and winning that game. You can put the odds at wherever you want it to, but Green Bay certainly still has a chance to beat Kansas City the way that they're playing right now with Jordan Love at quarterback. You go to Blake Bortles, who knows a fraction of the system and everything else, and it changes everything. You're not winning in Kansas City with Blake Bortles. I'm very confident in saying that and would be able to bet a variety of different things if it came to that situation. That's just not going to happen. So one more positive test. And not only that, not only do you lose the game because Blake Bortles is in at quarterback, but you miss out on that opportunity to see Jordan Love and really get that opportunity to watch him play, which is one of the actual benefits of this entire scenario, which we'll get into more in just a moment. So the biggest thing right now is Jordan Love's status. And of course, with Kurt Benkert and with Aaron Rodgers, both in protocols, you wonder how much exposure that Jordan Love has, and one positive test changes the entire outlook for potentially these next couple weeks. It could be really bad, really fast. So that's the biggest thing right now, but it's not just Jordan Love. It's a variety of other players. You could end up with some sort of serious outbreak where a multitude of players test positive. You could have just 2 or 3 more players, but if it's 2 or 3 important players, that of course lessens your chance to win as well. So Green Bay not out of the woods yet, and of course all of those players' health again remains the biggest priority here. So that is the next thing of, all right, does this continue to linger, and are there going to be more positives throughout the course of this week? And it's going to be something that until game day hits, you're constantly looking at the wire and Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter's alerts on Twitter as to, did anyone else from Green Bay test positive? It's going to be one of those scary things for the remainder of this week to see just how many other people, if any, go on that COVID-19 list. Then we get to the fun part, right? As we continue to peel back what this means that Rodgers tested positive, we get to Jordan Love's first start, again, assuming that he tests negative through the remainder of this week, which I'm going to be totally honest, I could not be more excited for. And it has nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers. It's just, how could you not possibly be excited for Jordan Love's first actual NFL start in a regular season game? Good, bad, ugly, and different, that is must-watch TV. That is a really interesting moment in time. When we go back and we saw Aaron Rodgers before this in games, and this wasn't him starting a game, but Rodgers playing significant time in that game against Dallas when Favre went down with an injury. That was like okay, Rodgers can play moment. This is a very serious moment in the career of Jordan Love. It's not a be-all, end-all. It's not an end game. If he looks amazing, it doesn't mean he's going to be amazing. If he looks terrible, it doesn't mean he's going to be terrible. But we get our first real glance of NFL regular season starting Jordan Love, and what does that look like? How does Matt LaFleur call a game plan for Jordan Love? What does the offense revolve around? All of those things are insanely intriguing. And this is a game that Green Bay is going to have to work hard to win, and even harder now that Jordan Love is at quarterback. And if Love goes out and he plays well within the confines of what's really a quarterback-friendly offense, that could look good against a pretty bad Kansas City Chiefs defense. If he struggles, or if Kansas City is well prepared and you don't have the ability to make some of those checks and changes at the line of scrimmage that Aaron Rodgers has the ability to do, that could get very difficult very fast. So everyone is going to have to do their quote unquote 111th and step their game up to some extent to help out Jordan Love and make sure that the heavy lifting isn't on him in his first game. And let's just be real here. This is not, even though KC is a bad defense, this is not an ideal scenario, right? It's you're getting somewhat thrust in. I know it's only Wednesday when he finds out that he's starting, but you're getting somewhat thrust in midweek on the road against KC in one of the toughest environments and in a place where you have to constantly think about cadence. You have to think about all of that, like the crowd noise as everyone lined up. Like it's not just friendly confines of Lambeau Field, crowd's quiet, you can do what you want. There's a lot going on in that situation and circumstance. So Jordan Love's going to have to be very well prepared. The Packers are going to have to prepare him well. I have no doubt that they will. The Packers coaching staff has been nothing short of phenomenal in how they have prepared every player to get ready to play in this season's games, especially with all the injuries that they've had. That's not going to be different with Jordan Love. But Jordan Love is starting, and to me, could not be more excited to see how that turns out and just what happens in his first start. That is, again, if you want to talk about the benefits of this, Green Bay getting a real look at Jordan Love before they have to make an Aaron Rodgers decision next offseason is incredibly valuable. And even if they've decided already and reconciled with Rodgers and they know that Rodgers is going to be back for the next 3 or 4 years, do not think for a second that they don't have a ton of investment in trying to make him look as amazing as possible this next week or two to opposing teams against Kansas City, against Seattle in big games. If he looks phenomenal, and even if you keep Aaron Rodgers, that pushes his price point up much higher if you do in fact trade him in the offseason. So regardless of what happens next, this is a huge game for the Packers franchise and for Jordan Love and his ability to showcase himself either to Green Bay or to other teams. And we have all offseason to get to all of that fun stuff and what's going to happen there. But getting a real look at Jordan Love and what he can or can't do is going to be incredibly valuable for this franchise. So that's another layer of this. And of course, there are a ton of benefits with being able to see him as well. The next thing, how does this affect the team, the team's chemistry, the momentum? I think that's one of the real big things here because this team is 7-1 on top of the world, coming off a win on Thursday Night Football against the undefeated Arizona Cardinals. They've played as a team and together with all the injuries. They are on the same page. Momentum is carrying them in the right direction. And then bam, everything stops at a moment's notice. Your quarterback and captain is tested positive for COVID, potentially in a very drama-filled way. Everything can kind of screech to a halt, and now you've got to go to KC. Jordan Love is starting. You could potentially drop a couple games to KC and Seattle based on, not having Aaron Rodgers. That's certainly within the realm of possibility, and if he misses those 2 games. So you could lose that momentum very fast, and there could be some hard feelings in the locker room for how this all went down. In creating a chemistry and keeping the momentum going, this could be something that I don't think derails the season. I think that's strong, but it could stop that momentum that they have, and it's something that they might have to work to get back. And listen, if Jordan Love and the Packers go out and beat Kansas City, that just continues the momentum they've already built, right? Now they've won with a backup quarterback. What's the next challenge you would like to throw at Green Bay at that point? They've won without their all-pro left tackle. They've won without their all-pro corner. They've won without their all-pro edge rusher. They've won without they've won without their all-pro wide receiver. Then they would have won without their all-pro MVP quarterback. Many of these guys all missing time at the same time. Like, what other challenge would you like to throw at this team? But if they lose a couple and lose some of that momentum and all those sort of things, then yeah, they could potentially lose out entirely on the number 1 seed. This could be something that pushes them from the 1 or 2 seed to maybe the 3 or 4. Those are all realistic outcomes that could happen because of this situation. So these next couple games and how Green Bay handles once again the adversity that they've faced so many times this season already, how they handle that is going to be big for the Packers, their seeding, all of that sort of stuff. The next is, how do you game plan for Jordan Love if you're Matt LaFleur? And now part of this is going to be, do they have Devontae Adams? Do they have David Bakhtiari? Who's in, who's out, those sort of things. But you got to think that this changes things a little bit. And again, you have to focus Jordan on some of the basics, right? You throw too much at him and all of the normal stuff, the cadence, getting everyone lined up, the calls in the huddle, the play clock, all those things that you sort of take for granted when you have an Aaron Rodgers at quarterback can all of a sudden go very bad very quickly, and you just don't want to overwhelm Love in his first start. So you want to make this, yeah, I have faith that Jordan Love is very comfortable with everything at this point, but at the same token, you don't want to give him too much too fast. And you risk paralysis by analysis and all those sort of things of just overthinking everything. Try to make this as simple of a game plan as possible and let players like Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams, hopefully, and those sort of players do the heavy lifting. And if you can build a game plan around that, which Matt LaFleur is better than just about anyone at, Green Bay absolutely has a chance to put up major points on offense in this game. It wouldn't surprise me if Green Bay scored 28 plus points in this game with Jordan Love at quarterback. They have that type of ability and potential. And this is part of the reason that you spend an early pick on Jordan Love, because everyone on this roster, as Matt LaFleur mentioned in his press conference, is a play or a positive COVID test away from missing a game on any given Sunday. This is a huge, like, most teams don't have a player as talented as Jordan Love as a backup quarterback on their roster. Some teams don't have a player as talented as Jordan Love as the starter on their roster. So if Jordan Love, let's just say Rodgers misses these two games, Seattle, KC, if Jordan Love can lead them to 1-1 in those two games, that would be a very big win for the Packers while Aaron Rodgers is out. And most teams in those scenarios may not win one of those two games. So we'll see just what that game plan is and how they can overcome the lack of Aaron Rodgers in this game. And then, of course, the next thing is the backup quarterback. And we know that they're going to bring in Blake Bortles, and he's going to be the backup for this game. I wouldn't be shocked if they brought in another player as well, because if all of a sudden Jordan Love does test positive, even if you have Bortles, you still probably need somebody else to at least be able to elevate on game day or something like that. So wouldn't shock me if a Jake Dolegala or somebody else ended up on the practice squad as well, just because you don't want to go into this game. Like if you just bring in Bortles and you're going into the game with Love and Bortles, and then Love test positive on like Saturday or Sunday morning and he can't play, now you've only got one quarterback. He gets hurt. You're going emergency quarterback with Randall Cobb or something. So frankly, I guess you could strongly make the argument that Randall Cobb as a Wildcat quarterback might be better than Jake Dolegala as an actual quarterback. So I'm not sure how much it matters, but all of these things have trickle effects. And if all of a sudden Jordan Love were to test positive, you get into some major stumbling blocks for this team and this franchise, at least for the coming week or potentially two. So all of those things still to be determined. That's like most of it in a nutshell. I'm not going to talk here for 45 minutes about all this stuff, but those are just some of the things that are going through as we learn that Aaron Rodgers tests positive for COVID. And of course, there's a lot of other things that are going on in the back end and on social media, and we're not going to get into all of that today, but there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of things. And the other thing that I want to just briefly touch base on this topic, I could not be more impressed in any way, shape, or form with how Matt LaFleur handles this stuff. Go watch his press conference and how calm and collected and cool he was during that entire thing. Twitter and social media and is just melting down. And Rodgers comes out, LaFleur comes out, and it's just another day at the office. And to have a coach like that who doesn't get too high, too low, that's just even keeled, plays it calm and collected and confident in these type of situations, that's exactly what you need. And you want to know why Matt LaFleur hasn't lost back-to-back games in 3 seasons. A lot of it's the talent that he has on this team, or some of it, but a lot of it is how he handles those situations. They win, they don't get too high. They lose, they don't get too low. They lose, 5 all-pro players that may be out for this game. No worries. Next guy up mentality. I know that's a mentality that's been with Green Bay for some time and with all teams in the NFL, but how he has handled those situations has been nothing short of phenomenal, and how he coaches this team has been really something special to watch for a coach who has never been a head coach at any level prior to coming in as a head coach of the Green Bay Packers and putting together the resume that he has these last 2.5 years. Nothing short of astounding, and he deserves a ton of credit for how he handles some situations, including what happened with Aaron Rodgers on Wednesday. Quick lightning round here. Jack Heflin was also out with an illness at practice. Kingsley Keke remained out with a concussion. Dean Lowry was out with a hamstring, so that will definitely be one worth monitoring. And oh, by the way, that's 3 defensive linemen, right? Heflin, Keke, Lowry. So you want to see hopefully 1 or 2 of those guys get back sooner rather than later. Josh Myers had surgery on his knee. It sounds like there's a chance he could still return this season, but that's big news that he actually had knee surgery. So it could be, it's not going to be anytime soon that Josh Myers is back. Let's just put it that way. Devontae Adams still not at practice. It sounds like they're hopeful that Joe Barry and Devontae Adams could return at Thursday's practice. We'll see if that happens, but that would be a big step for Green Bay if both of them were able to come back. But as of Wednesday, Devontae Adams still out. Of course, from a transaction standpoint, both Rodgers and Yadam placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. They signed Azoye Alufoye. I am butchering that, I am sure. I even spelled out the phonetics. Azoya Alufoye. Yeah, it's not great. I apologize. That's who they signed as one of their practice squad players. They also signed former Jaguars running back Raquel Armstrong. Much easier to say. Thank you, Raquel. But those were their 2 practice squad additions. What else do we have to cover? Anything? I think the big things that we're continuing to watch through the remainder of this week. Any other positive COVID results? Is Devontae Adams going to come back? Is David Bakhtiari going to come back? Did they sign anyone besides Blake Bortles as a potential quarterback replacement if needed? I think those are all going to be things to keep an eye on over the course of the next couple days. Lots to go over, lots to discuss. Appreciate you joining me today. I will be right back here tomorrow, hopefully with going over better stuff than what we did from Wednesday and talking about it today. But I appreciate you guys listening in. I know that this isn't the most fun topic in the world, but it certainly affects the Packers in a major way. And as I mentioned, I could not be more excited to see Jordan Love play football on Sunday. Hopefully, if the football gods are listening, give us that at least. We didn't get Mahomes Rodgers for the second time in 3 years. At least give us Jordan Love Mahomes in what should still be a highly entertaining affair. Thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate you as always. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.